My name is Fredy Kunzler, and I would like to thank for the invitation to come to Kraków for the first time. I don't speak any Polish, but I speak some English and quite good German with Swiss accent. I'm founder of Init7 AS13030, and I would like to share some experience we made in the last 1.5 years about IPv6. This presentation evolved over time. I gave a similar presentation at the Links meeting in spring this year, and the title there was IPv6 deployment for the IPv4 clueful. So I guess most of you or all of you are IPv4 clueful, and then you shouldn't have any problem with following this presentation. We're supposed to talk technical today. I make one excuse here. I have one marketing slide. This is the one. Just a brief interview about Init7. We are a Swiss internet service provider, wholesale and business driven. We are privately owned, independent, so we don't report to anyone except ourselves, which makes quick decisions, and we do what we think is best for our company and the technical aspects to be resolved. Then in Europe, we run IP and MPLS backbone. We sell full and partial tables, and we have mostly or a dual stacked V4 and V6 backbone, mostly foundry gear or now Brocade. 10 gig enables 10 gig rings across Europe, or across Western Europe, I should say. We are connected to approximately 20 internet exchanges, and just recently also to PLIX. And I hope you don't mind if I give out an ARP request here. If the peering manager of AS12741, this is Netja, could come and see me after the presentation, we should resolve the poor connection in the hotel. So this is AS12741. Around, please show your hand. Okay. So, come to the topic. I'm supposed to talk about V6 here, why you should get V6 running unless you already haven't. The screenshot is actually from yesterday. We have 705 days left. This morning it was 707 days, probably due to the economic crisis. It was a bit slowed down, the V4 pool exhaustion. I'm sure you have seen this slide before from Geoff Houston from AppNIC. It shows basically how the V4 pool gets exhausted, and sometime in 2011, presumably, V4 is gone. Then you probably would have a problem addressing more customers, and so you should do something. You certainly are aware that your business is in risk if you don't do anything, but your customer aren't probably. And if I quote Mike Lieber of Hurricane Electric, how long will it take until the auditors of your company find out that there is actually V4 soon to be over? So do you have a V6 plan, and how does it look like? I happen to be in the parliament of the city of Winterthur. This is my hometown in Switzerland, city of about 100,000 inhabitants. And as a member of the parliament, I can ask questions to the government, what they do about certain things. So I asked the question to the informatics services of the city of Winterthur, what are your V6 plans and how do you deploy? And actually they wrote and this is an example of probably most cities and governments or companies also, The city of Winterthur has sufficient public and private IP addresses, which relativizes the aforementioned shortage of V4 addresses. Currently, there is no need for action. 705 days until it's over. This is less than 2 years, and you all know that information services projects usually take quite long in public, in governments and public institutions. So, what people forget when they excuse their V6 ignorance, like the city of Winterthur, as soon as the first person, the first citizen of the local city has only V6 connection and no V4 connection, then the government is in trouble, because this person cannot fill in electronic tax forms or vote at all, which is a democratic right. He cannot get access to cultural activity calendars, etc., and the government has an issues, and then it will cost a lot of money to get that fixed. So you can think of thousands of other examples. We'd better move on now. The good news. Most of you are LIRs. Somewhere is a guy from RIPE NCC, and he certainly would be happy to help you with getting your V6, the first allocation. You fill in these forms, it's a formality, and within a couple of days or even hours you get your V6 address block. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. BGP4, still the same, subnets masks, same, OSPF, route maps, prefix lists, AS path, filter lists. You know all that. It's not rocket science. It remains the same. Dual stack, and I strongly disagree with the other person from Allegro. Dual stack works very well on network gear routers from any vendor. Please do not think of deploying V6 tunnels unless you are a DSL and cable end user. I come to that later. Or if you are a tier 1 tunnel hostel. So if you have a decent network with a couple of routers, and then an initial V6 deployment is probably 1 day work for an engineer which has root access to all routers. So it takes about a day. Take a quiet Saturday or Sunday to get that up and running. V6 address planning. So RIPE NCC allocation is usually a /32 network, which is, I don't know, I'm not that good in calculating, but plenty of addresses. And then to customers, you usually assign a /48, so you don't have to ask the customer anymore, do you need a /28 or a /29, etc., etc. Just assign him a /48 network, and you're done. By the way, is here a glass somewhere I can use and take some water? No, yeah, yes, please. Okay, then we use these /30 networks, point-to-point networks. In the V6 terminology, it's /126. I know that there are other proposals out there in the internet. This is how we did it, and it worked. And I don't want to argue these other proposals, whether they are working or not. And then finally, host addresses become a /28, which was in the V4 terminology a /32. So if you deploy your address plan, stick your existing addressing scheme. It's easier to remember. Use a /48 for loopback addresses and another 48 for point-to-point links. The notation, quickly to remind you, all the zeros are omitted and 2 columns here are used to replace many zeros in the address. And for documentation, you should also always use 2001 DB8 network. Many thanks. Thank you. So this is a sample network as you know it. v4 transit, v4 peer, couple of routers, all have IBGP configured with between their loopback addresses, nothing new, nothing rocket science. Below we see a customer server with v4 addresses. If we change to the v6 addressing scheme, I just kept the last octet as it is and deployed addresses. This was a rather easy task. You get this presentation later for download, so you all get the examples. Then we deploy here /126 to as a point-to-point link between routers 3 and 4, and the Ethernet segment between router 1, 2, and 3 is a /112. And finally, we assign a /48 to the customer, which deploys this address to his server. So we come now to the deep configuration level of the presentation. There are a few slides I would like to present. We turn on v6, IPv6 unicast routing and IPv6 Ceph on Cisco's, same on Brocade gear. It's not that difficult. Then we configure the IP addresses to the interfaces. This is also an easy task. Don't forget to put in IPv6 enable, otherwise it won't work. We turn on v6 OSPF. It's a separate process from the existing OSPF process. If you run OSPF, of course, you put the interface to the OSPF process 1 area 0 on Cisco's, and on Foundry it's just then the again IPv6 OSPF area 0. You then can check your neighbors, show IPv6 OSPF neighbor. As you know, these commands, they're all rather logical. Then we configure BGP, IBGP. Here we have, once you enable v6 on your box, the new two families, address family IPv4 and IPv6 unicast. All you know about BGP remains the same. You should peer between loopback addresses, etc. And then the eBGP transit and peers. Same again. It's not rocket science. It's the same as in the v4 world. And finally, we start to advertise our net block we receive from RIPE-NCC. Then, of course, you're supposed to put in a route object into the RIPE database. And last but not least, you check your propagation in various v6 looking glasses around the globe. Now we go to the customer side. That's even more easy. In a Linux machine, you have one command in the etc network interfaces file, then you reboot or you start your network stack and you're done. I'm not going deeper into any Apache configuration. I suggest you download this IPv6 how-to from Peter Bieringer, which has also rather good examples on the server configuration. This is a pitfall. There is no IPv6 default gateway anymore. Actually, there is an IPv6 default gateway, but it's configured automatically with this so-called neighbor discovery protocol. So the router advertises himself in the v6 network segment, and the server finds the router automatically. If you connect to an exchange, you're supposed to turn this off. Otherwise, you announce yourself as the default gateway via the internet exchange, which is probably not what you want. So the command is IPv6 and the suppress RA, which is suppress routing advertisements. the nice folks of AM6 and links, etc., they usually point you if you forget this. DNS server, also not rocket science. There is a new DNS record with quadruple A. You simply add this to your existing DNS zone file and you're done. And now this is the nastiest thing. That's why you can't read it. v6 reverse DNS. There is a tool with this link you can build the zone file for reverse, because it looks like this with so many points and zeros, and it's most likely you forget one or two. So use the tool to get it done quickly and easy. Now we come to a couple of tools you could use to check your IPv6 connectivity. If your ADSL cable connected home only has a v4 connection, you can use these tools at 6xs.net to figure out whether your network, your provider's network, is actually working and v6 enabled, and you can reach your v6 enabled hosts. So there are also a number of good hints and tricks on 6xs.net, and I recommend to look at it. It's a really good site. Now I come to a bit more general topic, which is v6 peering. And interestingly, we already see peering wars in the v6 world. You all remember these de-peering stories of Cogent and other vendors such as Telia, Level 3, whatever. Mostly it was Cogent involved. Even though many networks think IPv6 is still a sandbox and there is no reason to move forward on this, and it's a toy for technicians, we already see peering, de-peerings and peering wars, networks not peering with each others. And this screenshot, can you read it? Yeah, I think it works. It shows the number of prefixes in the various networks on route views. So most networks have some 1,800 to 2,000 prefixes today. And we have one network, which is NTT 2914, which has only 1,600 something prefixes. But it gets worse. If we look at largest v6 backbones, this is just a screenshot that, of course, changes every day. We know that Cogent, for instance, has only some 781 routes. And they claim it to be a full table. Why is this happening? Actually, they think that they are so-called tier 1 or default free network in the v6 world, and they don't get a full feed. They don't get a v6 full feed. And if you go back one slide and look at the first network, which is Hurricane Electric, I mean, they are about 3 or 4 times larger than the second one. A network which comes up with v6 definitely should try to peer with Hurricane Electric, but for whatever reason, Hurricane Electric and Cogent is not peering v6, and that's why they have such a small table and claim it to be full. So, of course, this is just an example. We have other networks not connected, so we see some islands in the v6 world, and this is difficult if you just have one transit or one supplier. You could claim it that the v6 full table of Cogent is crippled and So if you sign with any vendor for V6 transit, you'd rather check what they're actually going to announce to you. On the other hand, Hurricane Electric doesn't see the cogent prefixes in their network. So I went to the route server, figured out the prefix of cogent, and they claim network not in table. And I believe this is a serious issue because we don't see a clear focus like in the V4 world, whose network is actually default free and who has to get a transit. So in other words, we see a sort of a lab situation again, what happened about 15 years ago in the V4 world, when these so-called default free or tier 1 networks actually got established. Some words about peering policies. I was talking to several networks, and some, actually mostly incumbents, say, we peer only with networks we already have existing V4 peering. And my comment, regardless if they have clue or not. And other networks, mostly Asian networks, they tend to leak full V6 tables to each other without actually transiting the prefixes properly, which also makes one-way routing or you see a prefix but there is no return path in the V6 world. Certainly this should be fixed by these networks, but sometimes it's a bit difficult to reach the responsible guys, especially in the Asian Pacific region. And last but not least, many large networks don't see a business case yet in V6 at all, especially in the United States. This was also mentioned by Andrew from Level 3, that V6 actually is mostly European driven. Some peering considerations. I suggest you should get your V6 peers now. If you happen to be connected to M6, DKIX or links, then you get a lot of prefixes via peering, V6 peerings. You can peer to the route server if they're available. Most decent internet exchanges, there are route servers available. You should talk to Hurricane Electric. You get some 900 prefixes as of today. You certainly can talk to me. We peer openly. You should see some 100 prefixes from us. And then, of course, you know all each other. And at this community is certainly a good place to set up peerings. Then try to find some V6 customers. And if you advertise more than just one single prefix to your peers, then you're probably more attractive. And of course, then always the questions: do you really have V6 traffic to get your peers? And as I said before, get one or more decent V6 transit. The lesson we learned from history, from the V4 peering history, all the ASNs have usually many legacy peers. They never get deconfigured, even though you probably wouldn't meet the peering requirements anymore, or you have a rather small network. If you act now, chances are high that you finally, when V6 evolves traffic-wise, also you have your network peered already. And that's why basically I'm here, because we invested quite a bit of time to get this up and running. So bad people say 90% of the V6 traffic is ping. This statistics is actually not brand new. It's from March 13 this year. And so we looked at our S-Flow stats, and yes, we have some ping, V6 ping, ICMP messages, but it looks better. At that time in March, we had some 100 megs peaks across our network at the edges. And this is not much, but it's something which is worth to consider, in my opinion. I just checked the actual stats. They look pretty similar, so I didn't bother to update the new screenshot. Before I come to an end, I would like to mention a few links. We had last year in Berlin, Drive 56, some very interesting presentations, structural problems of the IPv6 routing, which addresses actually this bad behavior of leaking full tables without advertising or actually transiting properly prefixes of the peers. Then Geoff Houston has certainly a lot of presentations and slides about the evolvement of the V6 network. Then a good link to Bogon information of V6 is actually from Gerd Döring of SpaceNet. As I said before, if you have only broadband connection at home with V4, you can set up tunnel brokers and get some IPv6 addresses tunneled. Hurricane Electric has a decent portal, and as I mentioned before, 6xs.net. This presentation I gave for the first time was actually at SWINOG, Swiss Network Operators Group, and I left this slide because it shows some very early deployments of the V6 world. Switch is the research organization in Switzerland, and they already started in 2001 with IPv6. So this is mostly for history documentation. Please help to deploy V6 in Europe. Get your V6 allocation from RIPE NCC. Talk to me. We are offering free V6 full feeds for a limited time to get your to reach, or that your first ping or ICMP packets reach the destination. And talk also please to the CP devices vendors, Fritz, Zyxel, Netopia. You all know them. Most of them are pretty ignorant so far on the V6. I heard from one vendor, which is, I believe, AVM, that they have now some beta code out there. Zyxel, another vendor, actually dropped or abandoned their V6 deployment about 2 years ago because they believe there is no demand for it, unfortunately. This is also nice statistics, so never trust the statistics unless you have faked it yourselves. We see on rank 17 Poland, and I'm pretty sure you can get into the top 10 quite soon if you do some effort. So this is my presentation for now. I would like to have a rather, if you have time, an extensive question and answer section, or I will also invite you to comment what your experience is, what your goals are in V6, and so please open the microphone. Yes, Raza.
I'll just shout. Your 100 meg of traffic is quite a decent amount. Where is it coming from? Is it end users, cable end users, going to IPv6 porn, or is it enterprise users, academic users?
I'm afraid I don't know. We haven't investigated it anymore. It's just what we see on our number of edge routers, and I hope the statistics is actually valid, but I believe so. We didn't investigate too much. There was actually in V6 is a lot of news peering. So news peering seems to be popular for V6.
So this is measuring IPv6 to IPv6, not IPv6 to IPv4 destinations over a tunnel?
Yeah, it's included in these statistics.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
There was actually the update of antivirus software Avira used to be, or probably still is, deployed by V6. They did also some nice statistics there, could be found on the net somewhere. Any more questions? Yeah.
Hi, my name is Peter, Cisco Systems. Did you think about connecting IPv4 word and IPv6 word? I mean, to connect IPv4 with IPv6.
So, actually, as far as I know, there is only one working solution out there, which is called NatPT, usually implemented on Cisco gear. And
actually, NatPT is not really good solution at this moment, but yeah, we can talk later.
There is not any good solution, and as we all know, NAT is evil. I can quote the guy who was inventing NAT about 15 or 20 years ago, publicly apologizing at NANOG last October in Los Angeles that he actually made up NAT. So he was publicly apologizing for that.
Yeah. But
NAT is evil. Yeah.
I can recommend you carrier grade NAT, which will release later on.
Yeah, certainly you can.
Okay, thanks.
More questions? There and over there.
Hi, I'm from the RIPE NCC, so indeed, anyone that wants V6, send in a mail now, you will have it before dinner, I guess. But other than
Grab
that,
this man.
other than that, you've been doing V6 for a while, and you said that it was quite an investment. What convinced your bosses to actually do V6, and not even that, to also go evangelizing?
Well, you can ask me what convinced myself, because as I said in the beginning, I don't have to report to anyone.
Yes.
That's actually a good question, but I always was interested in to try to be a bit ahead of the game with technology-wise. And before April 2008, we just had one transit, one prefix, and I believe 2 customers, and it was rather poorly implemented. We had some ping packets flowing. And I looked also a bit from the peering ecosystem approach. So for me, it was also kind of a lab. Can we reach this default free status in V6 or not? So we invested some time. It wasn't really investment of money. But we believe that we are now in this so-called default free status. We miss about 50 prefixes currently, which we don't see by appearing. I said before, I'm also in politics, in local politics, and also in peering politics, of course, which is always fun. And so it was kind of a lab experiment for myself, but gives also some benefit, of course, to the company. And we can claim now that we are the biggest V6 provider in Switzerland. This is also something.
Does that get you actually customers?
Yes.
Good.
On the long run, yes. Not quickly, but yeah, we got some new customers, and I believe we will find some extra customers in the next months and years.
Thanks.
Yeah, there over there, please.
Hi, my name is Marcin. I have a question about, I didn't hear your presentation from the beginning, but do you also provide access to end customers, like private customers?
Not yet. This is an open task. We provide V6 connectivity to business customers, such as MPLS connected customers, transit customers, co-location customers, etc. We are still, this is an open task. We don't have our L2TP LNS boxes V6 enabled yet.
This is what I was going to ask for. I was wondering if you know any providers of gear, of a BRAS gear that has already IPv6 working for customers.
I believe there are some out there. It's not, Raza, remind me, Clarinet has something. They did some presentation, right?
Yes, I think the Clarinet is a primarily UK network, also with some assets in Germany. I think they're a Cisco VRAS.
Yeah, I mean, once we've done it, I update my presentation.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. More questions, comments? If you disagree with me, please raise your hand. So then I don't see any hands anymore. Then thank you very much for inviting me to PLNOG, and I appreciate the perfect organization here, and I'm around for the next 1.5 days. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I teraz zapraszamy do panelu dyskusyjnego.
Wow.
Ja poproszę...
I actually wear them. This is from Nano.
Proponuję zrobić to kilka minut przerwy, 5 maksymalnie, może 3. Zoptymalizować czas przynoszenia kawy i tak, zapraszam kolegów do przygotowania. Artur.